How's it going? So today on Big House Ball, we are here discussing some sevens rugby action. It is getting into the heated part of the tournament now. We're starting to really see the contenders. We're starting to really see, the teams that are struggling quite comprehensively. There are a few teams in that category right now who you would usually think are in that title contending category, but not this time. Just after Hamilton the series is when it really starts to heat up. Obviously we've had Cape Town, we've had Dubai, and now we've had Hamilton. Congratulations to New Zealand, by the way, who have been phenomenal throughout the entire series so far, but were phenomenal in New Zealand. I think we all picked that to happen in front of the home crowd, but wow, New Zealand have really taken it up a step this year. 5-6 years, they've gone through a bit of a rebuilding stage. They went through a stage where they were the best and then had to, and this is what happens with all teams, in all sports, you have to rebuild. You can't be the best forever. What you can do is restructure, and that is exactly what New Zealand have done, and they're definitely reaping the rewards of it right now. So in this video, we're going to basically wrap up Hamilton Sevens, and then we're going to discuss the Sydney Sevens, which we will be at, by the way. I will be vlogging from the Sydney Sevens. I have media accreditation, so we're going to be talking to the players. We're going to have some fun down there, and it's going to be awesome because it's at Bank West Stadium, which is just a phenomenal stadium. If you haven't seen my Parramatta Eels versus Brisbane Broncos vlog, that atmosphere was just absolutely surreal. So I cannot wait for the Sydney Sevens to be there, because last year was at Spotless, and Spotless was phenomenal, but I'm telling you right now, Bank West is just going to be on another level. Just before we start, I'm not a fan of this whole quarterfinals not being there and just being straight to semis. I know that does technically mean that you look inside the groups and you can kind of see smaller, quarterfinals. You can see a quarterfinal within the group, like two big teams. Whoever wins will make it to the semi-finals. So technically you'd look at that as a quarterfinal, but I just don't like the process. I don't like how it's been changed, and I really feel like it loses some of the impact that you have from some of those teams that come second and have a genuine chance. Like, for example, Kenya, they were phenomenal in this last tournament in Hamilton. They did really well, but unfortunately they really had no chance to progress. Unfortunately they didn't get a chance to actually show themselves and have the ability to do something in the finals, and the finals are obviously a completely different ball game, and that's the thing I'm not a big fan of, because it's like not even 50% of the teams make the finals, and it is frustrating, but it is what it is, I guess. It is what it is. But I just really would love it to go back to when it was quarterfinals, semi-finals, and then the final. In regards to how I think New Zealand did, I do think they have their vulnerabilities like every team does, but they're able to restructure and really refocus. Obviously, we saw that game against Australia where Australia did lead 14-5 at half-time, and then New Zealand flew back with 2 quick tries in the second half to make a 17-14 game and end up winning that game 17-14 in an absolute grind. That is what New Zealand is good for at the moment. No matter the adversity they face, no matter the struggles they face, no matter the fact that they do have some slight problems, they're able to overcome these, and that's what we saw in the Australia game, that they were down significantly and Australia were definitely on top in that first half, then they came pumping in that second half, and that's the sign of a champion team. So New Zealand, they're looking pretty solid right now. Obviously I did mention Kenya just now, and I also want to mention France. These two teams have really impressed me. They've really kind of changed the scene in regards to the big dogs. Obviously France are right at the top. They made the final. They did get pumped by New Zealand, but they did make the final, and they are a dangerous team on their day. They are a dangerous team. They're very consistent. I never would have picked them to be very consistent before the season started, but they are looking absolutely consistent right now. One thing that does worry me a little bit with France, and look, they might not be like this, and it is ending in Paris, but a lot of the time towards the end of the series, teams start to slow down. They burst off this great start, and they kind of slow down towards the end. I don't really understand how towards the end of the series it kind of starts to slow down, but it does, and that's what I'm worried about with France. The good teams, they stay strong, they stay energetic, but so far they've been very consistent. They're looking bulk, they're looking nice. They are looking like a solid team. The big one I want to talk about is Kenya. Now they, in my opinion, really were the initiative behind the utilize that pace of the game and find the gaps through their pace rather than structure, rather than actual tactics. Kenya has always been that team that has only utilized the pace of the game, and that's why I feel like in the last couple of years, the last few years, they've gone downhill because everyone has overtaken that. They've implemented that into their game. You look at USA, you got Perry Baker, you got Cullen Isles. You look at England, they've got Dan Norton. Australia's got some fast players, Morris Longbottom. New Zealand, they're not really pacey, but they've got the pace there to adjust if need be. Fiji, the whole Fiji team is just fast. So the point of the matter is that Kenya don't have that X factor in comparison to what they used to rely on. And I feel like they've really adjusted this game plan. Like, they've still got that pace, but I feel like they're more about the brutality now, you know, smashing that line, and I just feel like they're a completely different game plan. They've adjusted it accordingly, and yeah, they're starting to reap the rewards of it. Now, I'm not going to stand here and say they are a New Zealand or they are a South Africa or a Fiji. You know, they are what they are. They used to be like that, but nowadays they've gone backwards. But I feel like they're definitely on the right track for improvement. The next one I want to talk about is good old Fiji. Oh, good old Fiji, eh? Fiji. What's going on? 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 What's going on, Fiji? What is going on, Fiji? I don't understand. I don't understand what's happening right now. Is it a hangover? Are you feeling a hangover from last year? You know, the success from last year? Is that what's happening? The inconsistency is just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. You can go and beat Australia in an absolute grind of a game, and then you can go and get comprehensively beaten by Argentina. What's the deal here? What's the deal here? The thing that I find with Fiji is that we all know offensively they are phenomenal. You know, they risk it to get the biscuit. And I'm a big fan of risking it to get the biscuit. You know, you got to risk it to have that dynamic play that separates you from the rest. And Fiji are good with throwing the ball around and utilising their pace. Their lack of structure is actually structure. Sometimes this lack of structure, doesn't work out because it's too loosey-goosey. It's too throw the ball around. It's too risky. And I hate saying that. I hate saying too risky, but it is. It is too risky sometimes, and that's the problem with Fiji. And I find that the transition from offense to defense is something that completely breaks down. It breaks down for Fiji. The fact is that they put so much effort and so much ability into their offense that when it gets to the defense, they don't know how to adjust quick enough. And that's where the teams are exploiting them. Adjustments need to be made. Adjustments need to be made. I understand this is how they play. I understand this is how they've always played. But there needs to be some kind of change to make them realize transition to defense has to be prioritized. And the last team I want to talk about is Australia. Now, look, they actually looked quite good. They looked quite decent in Hamilton. If it wasn't for a late mistake by Maurice Longbottom, dare say they probably would have beaten New Zealand with the last ball of the game. It's unlucky, obviously. Maurice was thinking about what he's about to do next rather than what's happening in front of him, and then there was a few mistakes towards the end of that game that cost Australia a very significant win, which would have got them into the final, and I argue that they probably would have won the final. However, that's not what happened. That's just hypothetical right now, and we just have to live with it. But Australia, they look good. They just don't seem to be able to find that spark that they have. They have that spark, but they don't seem to be able to find that spark needed to actually take them over the line. They were fantastic against New Zealand in the semi-final. Obviously, they lost to Fiji, but they beat Argentina and they beat Samoa. It's very confusing. It was a very confusing tournament because they are a quality team, but it's just about finding that spark needed at the right time that the good teams are known for. They find that spark when they need it. Australia just don't seem to be able to find that ability that they do have to get them over the line. Alright, so let's move on to the Sydney Sevens in Australia this weekend. Very excited for this. I feel like this is a very pivotal tournament. Obviously, we're not halfway, but we're nearly halfway through this series now, and if New Zealand win this, they've basically got one hand on the title. But if other teams like maybe South Africa win it, or if Fiji come back and I don't know if Fiji can really muster up a challenge to New Zealand right now, unless, the fact is, they're in the same group. So unless New Zealand get knocked out and Fiji go on to win it, then they might be back in it. There's quite a few teams that specifically need New Zealand just to not win the tournament and them to do really well. So, for example, South Africa, you know, you've got France, technically, Fiji. If any one of these teams do win it, and New Zealand either don't get out of the group stage because they do have Fiji in their group, then the hand that New Zealand's got on that trophy, the other team's gonna be like, get your hand off my damn well trophy, son. This isn't biased speaking. I just kind of don't want New Zealand to win this simply because I want it to be a lot more open in regards to the further series that we've got to come. So in the group stages, bang, right here, we have some really tasty matchups. And like I said, there are no quarterfinals, so you have to look within the groups to find those, you know, sneaky quarterfinals. Pool A, you've obviously got the two big dogs, New Zealand versus Fiji. And there's even possibly Kenya. This is a very difficult group to get out of. So New Zealand and Fiji and Kenya, but I'd say that specific quarterfinal matchup that we're looking for is New Zealand versus Fiji. Pool B, it really has to come down to South Africa versus France. You know, potentially Argentina are there, but really the one I'm looking at is South Africa versus France because they are two big dogs in this series right now. We're gonna see if France has that consistency that I was talking about, and we're also gonna see if South Africa can bounce back from a disappointing tournament in Hamilton. Pool C and Pool D are relatively obvious to me, in my opinion. We've got Australia versus USA, which I believe that with USA this year, Australia should be coming out on top in that one. With Pool D, I've got England versus nobody. I don't believe that anyone in this group should be able to challenge a team like England. It's just really As simple as that. You know, Ireland and Canada, they can be quality on their day, nowhere near the style and quality of England. So if England did end up not making to the semi-final through this group, it's a little bit embarrassing. It would genuinely be a little bit embarrassing. The contenders, we've obviously got teams like New Zealand, South Africa, Fiji, France, Australia, England. They're the contenders that I just don't see anybody else taking out this tournament, especially with how the group stages are structured. I just can't see Kenya being able to get past Fiji and New Zealand to get into that semi-final. With Pool A, I'm actually going to go with Fiji to win. Now, I know New Zealand are in this pool, and, you know, they definitely could be the ones. They're probably favourites. They are probably favourites to go through this group. Kenya are difficult. New Zealand are difficult. But I feel like there's been a lot of criticism in the last week, just of late in general, this season in general for Fiji. And I feel like this is the tournament they're going to bounce back, especially in front of a big Western Sydney crowd. Western Sydney, there is a lot of Fijians in the population. I feel like they're really going to get out there and support them in numbers, just like we saw last year. So Fiji are definitely going to be a red hot shout to get out of Pool A. Pool B, I reckon it's going to be South Africa. I think they underperformed in Hamilton, and I just feel like they are definitely still a big time contender in this tournament. I reckon they'll get through this. They underperformed, but they're going to bounce back here. Pool C, and I'm going with Australia to win. I know this is like, a lot of people might be like biased, but I don't think this is genuinely biased. I think USA have been really struggling this year. They're not as good as they were last year. It's just not coming to fruition for them. They're not doing as in what they would normally do, and unfortunately for the USA, I can't see them really finding that form again here in a group with the hosts. So Australia to get through the group here. USA have a chance, but I'm going to go with the Aussies here. Pool D, if England don't win, they should be bombarded at home. When they get on their flight back to London, they should get bombarded when they get home. People should throw stuff at them. They should throw stuff at them. My ultimate winner of the tournament, I am going to be going with Fiji. I genuinely think this is their bounce back tournament. They've got a massive crowd in Sydney that's going to be right behind them. Effectively, if they don't beat New Zealand in the group stage, if they don't knock New Zealand out in the group stage, then their season's practically done. It really is. You know, they can't really catch New Zealand from that point if they let New Zealand get this head up and probably go on to win this tournament if they get out of the group stage. Fiji need to win this game or their season is genuinely done, in my opinion. So it's a very big tournament for them, and I feel like with the criticism, with the home crowd, well, not home crowd, but with the massive crowd, I think Fiji will definitely get over the line here, and that will set up an incredibly tasty final if that happens, because I feel like Australia should probably be able to get past the USA and England in their current state, and with the home crowd, I reckon that's going to be an absolutely tasty final if that does happen. That side of the groups, the Pool C and Pool D, are a lot easier to get through than the Pool A and Pool B, because you have the absolute big dogs in those groups. However, I genuinely think that Australia should be able to get through USA and England, who really are their only challengers, and if Fiji can get to the final, that'll be phenomenal. If New Zealand don't get in the final, that's going to be tasty as well between New Zealand and Australia. I just can't see Australia not getting through to the final. If they don't, it is a little bit depressing. It is a little bit depressing because it's not the difficult side of these groups. I've gone with Fiji to win this tournament. They are the current champions of the entire series from last year. They are a phenomenal team. They're going to want to prove that they are the best still. It's crazy to say going out on a limb, because usually that's what you say about like random teams or teams that don't really have too much of a chance and that you think are underdogs. I still think that Fiji are the best, but they are underdogs going into this tournament considering how underperforming they have been of late. But anyway guys, that is going to do us for today's video. If you like it, please a big thumbs up so know that you're enjoying this content. If you haven't subscribed yet and you love your sevens or you just love your sport in general, then go and hit that subscribe button below. We are going daily videos, so definitely have your notification feed on. Hit that little ding-a-ling-a-ling notification bell so you get notification every single time we upload a video. We are going to be there for the Sydney Sevens this weekend, so I'm very excited for that. Definitely get pumped up for that. Sunday the first video, Monday the finals video will be out. It's going to be a big weekend of sport. And that's going to do it for today guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.